His Hood, Great Spirit, Creator of all things, grandmothers and grandfathers, the four sacred directions of four sacred races, please hear our humble prayer. Malalam, thank you for all those gathered here tonight. Malalam to all those who have come here today to learn about the sacredness of water. Today, we need to pray for the water. Be it Standing Rock, Sipekne'katik, Grassy Narrows, Barrier Lake, Muskrat Falls, Poullette, Harrietsfield, Williamswood, Pictou Land, in British Columbia, and everywhere. We need to pray for the water protectors, where grassroots people are standing up to protect their waters, their lands, their families, their ancestors, and their future generations, as they are on the front lines to protect the sacred. The life, culture, and strength of Indigenous peoples of the world cannot be separated from the water. We embrace our connection to the lifeblood of Mother Earth and encourage all people to remember that water is sacred and it is our responsibility to protect the water. We reach out in truth and reconciliation to teach you about us and about our connection to our Mother Earth and our sacred water and to each other. We give our sincere gratitude for the many blessings that our Mother Earth provides. We give our sincere gratitude for the water. Someone, water, Kesalu, I love you. Someone, I thank you, Maloney. Someone, I respect you, Sipekne'katik. Maloney for our Mother Earth who provides all that is needed to live. Maloney for the sacred waters for quenching our thirst and helping things to grow. Maloney for the sun. The four-legged. In our families, our elders, our youth and children, our leaders, and our medicine people. We pray for strength and courage that encourages growth and positive change. We give thanks for the resilience that you give to us in our times of need. We give thanks for the courage of our hearts, our female energy, and of our minds, our male energy, that empowers our potential for healing. We pray for mankind to embrace and love and respect our Mother Earth, to take action to turn around the effects of climate change, to help do whatever they can, whatever you can, to help our Mother Earth and our sacred waters to heal. We do this before Creator, so that our children and our future generations will have a safer place to grow, a safer place to live, and will always have clean water to drink, and will always know the honor and sacredness of water in our Mother Earth. We do it for the water.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. My name is Robin, and I'll be moderating this evening. I just want to invite everyone who's not already sitting to come and join us. And if you're sitting on the wings, if you want to join us in the middle row, just so we can feel like a big, cozy family, this is a huge room, so that would be fine. I'm very lucky to work at a place called the Council of Canadians, which was one of the organizers of this event. And we've been working alongside these fabulous folks for quite some time to fight the Alton Gas Project and fight for the rights of water and people. So, I'm going to kick things off just with a short presentation giving an outline of what the Alton Gas Project is and why we're fighting it. And I'm going to turn things over to our speakers for a little while. And at the end, we're going to do a question period, which I'll tell you more about. So for now, make yourself comfortable, and here we go. Like Dorene said, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're on the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And for thousands of years, the Mi'kmaq have sought to walk gently on this land. They offered assistance to the first European travelers to this territory, shared their knowledge for survival, and signed treaties of peace and friendship with many of our ancestors. It's important to remember this troubled relationship as we do the work of protecting our water, air, climate, and our collective rights. Okay, so with that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Alton Gas Project and why it is that we want to stop it. So this project is meant to store huge quantities of high-pressure natural gas deep underground in salt caverns. These caverns have not yet been created, but are supposed to be created by solution mining, basically by putting water underground to dissolve caverns into an existing salt deposit. The water that will come out of that is a brine that's 8 times saltier than seawater and will be flushed to the Shubenacadie River. The idea is, if you can see this picture, the channel there is where Alton Gas intends to dispose of the brine resulting from this mining. And that's a bad idea, but luckily the Shubenacadie River had a really different idea of how things would go, and as soon as that channel was dug, the river actually filled it with 7 feet of mud and buried the outflow pipe, pretty much stopping the project from going forward. So jokes on Alton Gas. So here's just a little map to situate us. Alton Gas also plans to build a pipeline to take natural gas to and from the caverns. This pipeline would cross land dotted with wetlands, a stand of old growth hemlocks, and would cross the Sipekne'katik River, so now we're connecting 2 rivers. And I could probably talk for 3 hours about all the foolish things about this project, but we have to focus on only a few. So we've chosen 4 main topics for this evening: water, climate change, Indigenous rights, and environmental rights. So starting with water, Alton Gas poses threats to water at every stage of the project, and in every way possibly imaginable. To create the storage caverns, brine would have to be piped out of the ground and through farmers' fields, risking water and soil on farmland. The brine outflow on the Shubenacadie River, which is home of important fish species, generations of fishermen, and it has been the centerpiece of the Mi'kmaq culture and history for millennia. Once the caverns are operational, they risk contaminating groundwater, residential wells, and the water for the town of Sipekne'katik. The salt formation that these caverns would be carved into is at risk of leaks, and in other similar projects to this one, these leaks are completely unpredictable and have resulted in methane reaching the surface many dozens of kilometers away. Furthermore, the pipeline that would move the methane back and forth would have to be kept clear of dense plant life, leaving a permanent scar on the landscape. So if we think about climate change for a minute, this iteration of the project suggests only building a few caverns, but the original proposal actually included an intention to build 10 to 15 more in the near future. That amount of gas far exceeds the current local usage and local production of natural gas, which points to intentions to expand the industry, to export gas and LNG, and to import fracked gas from elsewhere. More on climate change, there's just simply no more room in the carbon budget globally for new fossil fuel development. And the chances of blowing past a climate tipping point get worse every single day. It's absolutely unacceptable at this point to be building new fossil fuel infrastructure, as it's clear that we need to invest in renewable energy at a breakneck pace to avoid mass human suffering and life-threatening damage to the ecosystems that sustain us. So this project, as you maybe noticed by the map, is located near Sipekne'katik First Nation. And the original consultation process didn't include this community at all, despite them being very close to the project site. After a long and bitter appeal and then Supreme Court case, the government has been forced now to return to the negotiating table with Sipekne'katik, which I hope our speakers will tell us a little more about. But negotiating on Nova Scotia's terms isn't enough. This project demonstrates clearly that the foundation of the negotiating relationship between the Mi'kmaq and the government has strayed from the original intention of the treaties. For Mi'kmaq to be able to exist on this land to their best advantage, as the treaty says, that means having a real say in how this land is used by all of us. This means changing from our duty to consult, which is a commitment to a process, to a commitment to achieving free, prior, and informed consent by people impacted by projects like this. The way that Sipekne'katik as a band and as a community has been kept out of decision making, this carries over into non-Indigenous populations as well. Detailed information on the project has been really hard to get, and the company has kept public communication to a bare minimum. One couple who have a cavern wellhead within a few hundred feet of their front door. There would be a cavern almost under their house. They didn't know about the project until a full 6 years after it was approved by the government. And that continues to go on. So the level of red tape that we've experienced between us and the information that we need to understand this project, let alone fight it, has been completely shameful, and the lack of access to justice is as well. Nova Scotia has a long history of taking on industrial developments with huge environmental, health, and economic risks, and is consistently left without the economic gain from these projects to deal with their negative impacts. So it's time for us not to look only at avoiding risks of projects, as we currently do with our environmental assessment process, but to be actively building an economy that increases our health and increases our sustainability. And to do this, we need to update the way that the public is included in environmental decision making, and update our laws and policies so that our governments and companies are actually held responsible to our needs. Alton Gas poses a lot of threats to our water, climate, and our rights, but it also presents some real opportunities for us to fight and make real wins on those fronts. To fight and win for protection of our groundwater, rivers, and wetlands gives us a precedent to point to in the future, and builds the power for us to deny social license for other future harmful projects like this. To succeed in stopping a fossil fuel project, we're not only stopping those emissions from entering the atmosphere, but we're also telling our government to do a fundamentally better job on climate change and signaling to the oil industry that they're not welcome here. To recognize and honor treaties while we do this work, we're building alliances with Mi'kmaq and settler communities that are critical to reconciliation. The court case regarding the consultation is one of the first of its kind in Nova Scotia and is setting important legal precedent. And to learn about the failures of our current environmental law exposes these failures publicly so that we may address them and gain more public control of our environment at a community level. So that's kind of the basics of the project and why we're fighting it and why I have so much hope in us winning. I assume you want to join us in this fight now that you know all these things. So I'm going to turn it over to our speakers for a little while. And then at the end, there will be a question time. So you'll see little pieces of paper on most of your chairs. If you could write down any questions that you have as we go along, some runners will come around and collect those at the end so that I can read them out. And you'll also notice this clunky piece of equipment, a couple of pieces of equipment here. We are live streaming, so hello to everyone on the live stream. Thanks for joining us. And you can ask questions at the end by just typing them in the Facebook event page that you're already on. And I guess I'll turn it over to our speakers. So first up is going to be Dorene Bernard, who I think needs no introduction, but I'll introduce her anyway. Dorene is a long-time water protector and grassroots grandmother, and he's got a lot to say about Alton. After her is going to be Dale Poullette, who currently lives beside the Shubenacadie River and is keeping watch on Alton Gas. And then we'll have Jim Maloney, who is the district board chief for the Sipekne'katik district of Mi'kmaq. So Dorene, take it away. Do you want your...
Yeah. I just have some pictures to follow our talk as we go along. There's a lot of pictures, so we'll just welcome. This is already did the welcome for to our traditional territory of Sipekne'katik. My name is Alton Gas Project, which means I love my Indian ways. I come here to speak on behalf of the grassroots people who are standing up to protect our beautiful river, our beautiful water system, Shubenacadie River system in Mi'kmaq. Our people have been here for over 13,000 years, and this waterway has a significant, the Bay Funny, all of our water has a significant spiritual, cultural significance to our people. The chiefs were supportive, and I don't know more when we were on the highway in 2012 to support our fight for our treaty rights. they need to come forward and be supportive of us today for our fight against Alton Gas, the poisoning of our river. We haven't had much support from the Assembly chiefs, and our band had left the Assembly and the KMKNO, which is the negotiation table. We call it the termination table. It's a consultation table to come up with a modern day treaty, a modern day accord that will reinterpret our treaty rights and nullify our 1752, 61, 60, all our treaties. So we're against that consultation, because it doesn't come to the people. It just goes behind closed doors to the government and the chiefs and the lawyers. When we first, before we started this, we were doing water walks in the city of Halifax at Conquest Park. How many people here have been a part of those walks? So over the 7 years prior to this happening, we had already been praying for the water. We were praying for the healing of the Halifax Harbor. We were praying for all the water, healing for all the water, and protection. Little did I know that we were already praying for the water off the Shubenacadie and the Bay of Maloney. So in last year, in May, we started the Sipekne'katik River water walk to raise awareness of what is happening. And all along our walk, the women prayed and walked with the water. And we met people that came out of their houses onto the road as we were walking by, asking what it was about. And they didn't even know about the Alton Gas Project. As we continue to when we first knew about this project, it was just like everyone else that was driving along the 102 and seeing clear cutting and a pipeline going in and wondering, what are they doing? When did we start getting pipelines in Nova Scotia? And we started asking questions. And it was in 2014, 7 years after, when they were one permit away from drying, when our people found out about this project. Of course, if they had come to us in 2003, when they were planning this, we would have told them, no, this can't happen. We will not allow this to happen into our water. But they did come forward, and we put up a protection camp on the side of the 102 highway to raise awareness to Nova Scotians driving by that we were there to protect our water. We were also working with environmental, the Enrich program, that the project that is working to address environmental racism in Nova Scotia. And we were talking about, Boat Harbor, talking about, Williamswood, and all these different projects that were going on, whether it was people without clean drinking water. And little did we know that our river was going to be on that list next. And I think we started working together with different organizations like the Ecology Action Center, Council of Canadians, and grassroots people from everywhere wanting to know more what they could do to help to stand up, to educate about the projects that were going on and how they were going to have impact. Poullette, last year lost their drinking water, and they were asking for support and for help. So we always, water issues are always going to be coming to the people as long as these corporations are allowed to do what they're doing. 2014, when we found out about this project, we have not stopped to raise awareness. We have not stopped. Dale's been down at the river standing for the water for all of us. all these 7 to 8 months. Right through the winter, the harshest winter we've had, harshest nights and days. The treaty truck house was built this September last year as a response to the traditional use of our lands, and to practice our treaty rights, and to be there on the river, to fish, to harvest medicines, to do all the things that, and to trade. People came down with things to trade, and we had things to trade as well. So the treaty truck house is very significant, and I think we need to build more on every river, every waterway. And we need to build them on the in front of those forestry companies that are coming in to clear cut our lands as well. We had a Mi'kmaq water symposium in October, and that Grandmother Josephine Mandelman, the mother's water walker, came to our territory to give us the teachings we needed and the support for the work that we were doing as women. As women, it is our traditional responsibility, our cultural responsibility to protect the water. As givers of life, as we carry a child surrounded by water, comes into the world through the water. And that gift that we were given that responsibility to protect the water for everyone. She gave us these teachings to help us carry on the work that we needed to do. The treaty truck house is continuing. We continue to have ceremonies there. Our presence is there on the river to protect our lands and our waters. We still have other corporations that are coming in to impact the water with the tidal turbines. That's another whole issue. It's all connected. The Bay of Fundy is connected to the inner bay, the Minas Basin where these turbines, we call them meat grinders, are being put into the water to kill the fish. When I heard about those, I was really upset because we're upriver trying to protect our endangered species of bass and salmon, and they're out there in the bay putting up tidal turbines that will have an impact on those species at risk. And I said that before they even get up to where we are, to the river, to spawn, for us to fish, they'll be being destroyed. So we have another fight on our hands. So it's a continual fight, but it's a fight to save our water. There was no consultation like Robin said, there was no consultation with our people. And like I said, if there had been consultation about any of these projects, we would not allow them to do this. And they would have known, they could have saved themselves $35 million whatever they spent to this point, knowing that we cannot allow this to happen. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dale Poullette. I'm from Cape Breton, Sipekne'katik territory, and I joined the resistance in 2013 to help the Mi'kmaq and the allies in New Brunswick there for the anti-shell gas protests. I wasn't there exactly when the raid happened, but I went up there and made that call. They had a call out, and I joined them. And when I got up there, was a disaster to see all the camp destroyed. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I do remember that I was told to keep praying, keep doing ceremonies, keep going, follow that red road, and just help out any way you can. So after 2013, after the Rexton raid there, and not too long after SW packed up, that was a victory for us. We ended up going home, later on getting charged for nonsense. But anyway, not too long after we found out that Alton Gas was coming here, and I was kind of depressed about it because of Rexton, all that trouble that happened. So I decided to help the grassroots grandmothers up here. I'll do anything, just about anything to help them, whether it's jump in the front lines or sit there for 7 months and pray. And I'm trying to encourage the youth, the next generations below me, to continue this fight in prayer, not with guns. We joined the allies in Rexton, and we've seen the work that work together helped us a lot, because it showed the government that we're not backing down from no one. And you can't destroy our water, because that water gives life for just about everything on this planet. You name it, it's water and everything, even in the rocks, even in the air. We are made up of water. So, I just want to talk about all these corporations, what they like to do. And, from my knowledge, what these corporations like to do is to buy their science. They like to buy it. They don't really do any science at all. They hire these people to go and do 7 years of research and then say there's no fish in that river. But there I was at that river pulling off fish that wasn't even on that list. So I just want you guys to know that the corporations like to do dirty schemes and tricks on First Nations and just about everyone. So much things happening in Nova Scotia right now. We've got Alton Gas, we've got LNG pipeline, the Bearhead Project, clear cutting. They want to spray the grounds with glyphosate. And you got Harriet's Field with their underground water is being contaminated with the uranium, the lead, and the arsenic. Duncan Mine Coal was another one that they brought back up, which they shouldn't have. And there's a lot of things going on. It's going to affect us one way or the other if we don't stand up now and make change. There's a few more projects out there getting ready. It's hard to stop these guys without allies, so we're looking for more allies to help us fight these corporations, because they come here for our natural resources and they do a lot of dirty tricks and tactics to do it. Smear campaigning was one of them in Rexton, where they burnt those 4 cop cars just so they can raid those protesters in the McNeil and the allies. So we got to raise that awareness and keep on the good fight with prayer and information, because information is power.
You're so tall. Great. Mina daw si Sipekne'katik, Sipekne'katik, which is teaching me. My name is Sipekne'katik, and I was born at Shubenacadie. Ito ako ang butang na hindi kamo ng Georgia. I want to talk to you from inside my heart. I want to tell you the story. Our traditional ways. We're honored today. We're honored and received with food and refreshments. And I want to thank staff here for doing that. That is a very, very important component of our ways of needs, of sharing. You know, you've heard of the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. And really, we only need to talk about 30 seconds for anybody to believe that they would put caverns of gas storages under the ground, for 1 kilometer under the ground, pump all that salt into the river, and everything is good. Who would, who would believe that? They have a 40% failure rate, right? You know, and no wonder they don't want to have any consultation. Because they're goddamn idiots, right? Who the hell would agree to that? There isn't one homeowner out there that would agree to that. And of course, the Mi'kmaq wouldn't agree to it. And if the fish could talk, they wouldn't agree to it. You know, the Mi'kmaq were here for 400 years. We didn't have a voice. For 400 years, we couldn't get legal representation. Institutions like these, universities and colleges that educated doctors and lawyers would never teach our treaties. Matter of fact, they trained lawyers the opposite way, that the colonialism and the government were the true holders of title. And that the Indigenous people had no rights because we were, as one lawyer tried to put it, conquered. Well, we were never conquered. We never sold our land, we never gave it away, and we never got paid for it. Now, reconciliation, when we talk about reconciliation, the provincial government and the institutions like the colleges and universities and the churches, they need a ladder to come down to our level before there can be a reconciliation. There can never be a reconciliation when you build a platform for yourself to give out gifts and presents that belong to the original people. How in the hell does that work? They're using our resources to fight us in court. Using the sale of our lands, our minerals, our logs, our water to fight us in court. They came here broken people. They had nothing. They were running away and promised a different place. But they didn't realize that there was theft involved, and mayhem, and genocide. So settler, the word settler is not a really good word because settler comes with colonialism, death, and genocide. So we're honored today that the trees and the water have given the Mi'kmaq a voice finally. That the water is so important, and the trees are so important, and the air is so important, that we all have to get together and talk about it because now the sky is falling. the sky is falling, literally. And we need our alliances. And you need the strength of the Mi'kmaq people and the treaties to stop these corporations. Because being a landowner, you're already found out that that's not working for you, is it? You weren't even consulted. Bulldozers were driving by your homes out there in Alton. Pipes were being digging in the ground, and business as usual. People didn't know. All of a sudden now, we're in alliance with the Mi'kmaq people. I agree that we are treaty people. And I've seen the Premier say that. I agree that we are treaty people. His treaty's on a paper. My treaty is the land. My track's on my ground. That's my signature. It's not a piece of paper. When Jean the Baptist Cope, the Grand Chief, signed that treaty in 1752, he walked from Sipekne'katik district to Sipekne'katik here, and signed those treaties. They fought a war. They fought a war for 150 years. It didn't come gracefully. But now we have a treaty, and it is recognized. From 1925 to 1952, it was against the law for any lawyer to represent any Mi'kmaq or any Indigenous person across Canada in the courts. They would have been thrown in jail and charged for doing that if you were trying to represent an Indigenous Mi'kmaq person's Aboriginal inherent rights. The pie is already cut up. The pie is already divvied out. Now there's crumbs in the plate. That's what we're fighting over now. So we need our help. We need your help. We need the alliances to work together, because water and air and trees and land and resources and food are all our interests. We need to survive together. A lot of bad things happen. And forgive me for my tongue being a little sharp, because I come from an age that have suffered that. They gave the Grand Chief Sillaboy a pardon a couple of weeks ago. Province gave him a pardon because back in 1927 they charged him for hunting and for getting skins and selling those skins for trade. And went to court and they said that the treaties were no good. So it was open season on the Mi'kmaq. Already they didn't respect the treaties. Already we were being charged. Already we were shoved off all the lands and what have you. We're everywhere. But now it was a lot of land for the RCM police and DNR, Lands and Forests, and eventually Fisheries, to attack. To attack on the best interests of their own people and their own family members. To attack our people. And we could not fish. We could not hunt. We could not gather in our own territory for all that time. And if any lawyer tried to come up with anything, we would have been charged. They would have been charged. And it wasn't until the Simon case in 1980s that came through, and my brother, Sagamau Chief Reg Maloney, took that to court, that our treaty rights were finally held up again. And even when our treaty rights were held up, they're still being challenged today. We always have to defend a negative. We're never asked to defend a positive. You know, we win something, we have to defend it. Right? This is ridiculous. I'm telling you that this alliance that you're interested in is a very dangerous, dangerous position you're putting yourself in. You will have guns pointed at you someday. You will be arrested someday. You will have attack dogs at you someday. You will have snipers at you someday. If you follow us. You have to be told that. This is all good, well and good and comfortable in here. But it's not always this pleasant, believe me. The government wants those resources. And the industry wants those resources. And what keeps the government in power is those industries. So be careful. We appreciate you standing with us. But if you care about your generation, and your future generation of your own children, your own grandchildren, and your own great-grandchildren, then you need to take that fight now. You need to stand up. You need to spread the word that projects like the Alton Gas just don't make any sense. We're not that desperate at this time for that resource. If we were, the Mi'kmaq, we would have to make a compromise of some sort. We're business people too. We're not about shutting down industry, but we need to be consulted and we need to be compensated. We need to be compensated for the loss of the use of our land and the loss of our resources. That's when reconciliation will start. Blah, blah.
Let's give a big round of applause for all three of our speakers so far. Right, so soon we're going to get to your questions, so remember to take your piece of paper, write your questions on it, and someone will come around and grab them in a few minutes. But I want to take a few to just turn back to the panel and see if anyone wants to respond to anything that's been said so far, or if you have a new idea you want to share.
Well, I think one of the biggest issues is that Alton Gas came here to build fracking infrastructure for fracked gas. And we know that Hayes River is one of which is a stone's throw from Shubenacadie, has gas deposits there, which is a stone's throw from the river and the caverns that they proposed to build.
Yeah.
So one of the slides shows that there was 11 caverns that were planned in their original. First they said 18, and then we have a map here of 11 caverns. So how did that get down to 2? And I believe it's because we stood up and we went to the river and we stood there and we built a truck house and we brought the people there and we seen the beauty of this river. We lived it for months. And people came to connect with the water. When you see the children that were sliding down, mudslide into the river, and all the people who brought food and brought families, every weekend we had 100 people down there. And during the week we had people down there to make sure there was a presence on the river while they were there. All the gas packed up in there. December. So Alton Gas took down their office and moved it out to Brentwood in December. But we didn't leave the river. Dale didn't leave the river. We stayed there to continue the presence to protect the water. We know Alton Gas must think we're pretty stupid. And we don't know, they're putting in pipelines to the LNG terminal. And they're setting up this infrastructure for fracked gas. We're 18 caverns and then 11 caverns, and now the other two failed. The other two caverns they were planning didn't come through, so they think this is not just a one-time deal. They'll be back if we allow these to happen. They're going to be back, and more corporations will come. So we have to cut off the head of the snake now, before it continues to grow. They're already putting in pipelines, the LNG terminal. They're already putting in the pieces of the snake are going to come together. And we have to stop it because this is not for us. What we do today is for our future generations, 7 generations in front of us. And I think it's really important that we look at that. We don't want their money. We don't want a benefit agreement. We don't want them to come to our community and say, we'll give you $1 million for a hockey rink or an elder's home or build houses. We want that river, that water's connected to our groundwater. That water's connected to all drinking water for miles and miles around. And we have to protect that water. We don't want their money. We want them to go home. We don't want anything to do with Alton Gas. And I think our people all need to know that. When you stand with us, the government put in Bill C-51, passed Bill C-51, which makes us eco-terrorists. We're all sitting here as terrorists in the eyes of the government. Are you terrorists? Do I look like a terrorist? This is my look. I think that we need to realize that whatever happens, I think Standing Rock taught us very many good lessons, very many hard lessons. My heart goes out to Standing Rock and all the people who stood there and continue to be impacted by that, what they're doing. And we know as grandmothers that we don't have a choice. And I said it before, nobody wants to be on the front line, standing in front of someone with a gun, or even someone with a tractor, or whatever they're going to use to do this work. But we don't have a choice. This is who I am, and I ask you to stand with us. This is wonderful.
Yeah, like Dorene said, Nova Scotia is all water, basically, underground, surface water. We have to stand up now and protect that before it's too late. And, basically just join lines together and show the government that we're not going to step down. Start using our peace and friendship lines to join, help us out. Let's try to get our unity back. Bring our chiefs back involved with us, grassroots leaders, grandmothers, so that their followers can help us too. So.
Yeah? Okay. So we got a couple helpers to run around. Oh, hi. Yes. Okay, we got a couple people to run around and grab questions if you've written them down. And if you're on a live stream, you can ask them on the Facebook group, and I'll just pull up all my notes here. See questions coming. Great.
Or comments, don't have to take questions.
Yeah, comments as well. Okay, let's look at these questions.
I thought I had questions too.
I was hoping someone would have questions, so I wanted to just stand here and just awkward silence, but it's fine, we're all fair.
You can always yell mine. Come on.
No. Is there a good reason I'm having it written down? Right, okay. So, people are curious if you could tell us more about the 1752 treaty and how it can help this struggle and help to rebuild relationships going forward.
Well, the 1752 treaty is recognized by the Supreme Court. So that would be the standard of what we're looking at in respect to ownership, consultation, territorial rights, hunting rights, gathering rights. So that's a very, very powerful tool that has influenced the treaties of 1761, which again reaffirms 1752 Marshall decision in respect to fishing rights. The territorial rights, as far as Marshall goes off 200 miles off the coast. Our people out there are fishing and gathering out to sea. So our territorial rights are not only land-based, they're water, air, and land. So those are very well recognized. And these treaties are reaffirmed again in the Royal Proclamation of 1763, which eventually brought Canada on stream. So a lot of the treaties in respect to land use and sales of land and ownerships of land and jurisdiction were reaffirmed in the Royal Proclamation of 1763. So it's a very well documented process. So they are important.
What will the next steps be after the appeal was granted in January 2017 by Justice Hood? So what's the follow-up of the court case and the result in January of some kind of continued consultation? Can you speak more to that?
As far as I know, as a grassroots grandmother and band member, what we won was very limited. I didn't feel like it was much of a victory, but it was a victory. We won the case because of procedural fairness. There was no procedural fairness. There was no consultation with our people. And the main report, the Warren report, was given to the Minister of the Environment just before she made her decision to not give us our appeal on the environment, the permit. So there were several organizations and groups that put in appeals to the minister on the environmental permit for this project, and they were all shot down, and ours was shot down as well. So we went to court. Our band went to court to the Supreme Court based on that procedural unfairness, that we didn't have the information that they were using to she made this decision. So as far as I know, the band lawyers, our band, was still waiting for the province to release that report. Minister of the Environment, Margaret Miller, to release the report to the band through our lawyers, and then we will have to do something. And whether it is to go back to court or to have meetings with the minister on in procedural fairness, to know all the information that they were basing their decisions on. Wasn't that crazy? Right up until not only did Alton Gas not consult with any Mi'kmaq or any of our people, they started consultations, information sessions in 2014 in Brookfield, in Millbrook, in Shubenacadie. They were just finding out about this project in 2014 when the minister already gave them a permit. The last permit that was that they needed was the permit from the agricultural permit to bust through the dike to build that mixing channel, they call it. Where they created an island that we went out there and claimed the Treaty Island. We put our flag up, we put our flags up, we put our prayers on that island, we put a teepee up. That's when they knew that we were there and that we weren't leaving. So I think as our band examines, whenever that information, the Warren report, the Warren, is it Warren or Warren? Warren, right? Report. Anyway, it's the report that he did to talk about the environmental risks of the assessment. So we're going to be asking for a new assessment. Whenever there is consultation with our band, I think the grassroots people should be present, and nothing should be decided outside of a referendum with all of our band members to be a part of that process, because I know we haven't been consulted even by our own people, our own leadership. So yeah, that's where it is right now, and anytime we should be hearing something back from our own leadership as well as from the Nova Scotia government.
Just on some clarification, you hear us talking about inherent rights, Aboriginal rights, treaty rights, and then we also hear we're being mentioned and identified as Indian Act bans. The Indian Act ban is a product of, it's a municipality of the federal government, really. The same way the municipality of Halifax is of the province. It gets its authority and its rights on the Indian Act from the federal government. So we're not really too interested in the Indian Act concept or being consulted as an Indian Act group. We need to be consulted as an Indigenous nation that signed the original treaties with other nations, a nation to nation. That's the decisions that the courts made. That's the decisions that all the treaties that the court case. By the way, we won out of 200 some court cases. We're running like 98% success rate on all of them, right? So, and then what causes that? It causes that because that's the live. I call that's reconciliation working there. Whereas I don't have to be a Catholic to be a Canadian. As an Indigenous person, I don't have to be an act or an Indian act to be an Indian, because I'm not an Indian, I'm a Mi'kmaq. Indians come from India, right? So I'm a Mi'kmaq, and we're a Mi'kmaq nation. And what the government wanted to do was split us up into little, what they call bands, so they could negotiate deals with each individual band and put you in dire strait, so that the very basic substance of food, of housing, you would survive, you'd sign to save your family. Very few Mi'kmaq people own private property in the whole territory of Mi'kmaq Nation. We're on reserves. The chiefs, their constituents, are wards of the government. The same way, if you're in prison, you're a ward of the government. So, you have to understand where we're coming from. Water and land, fish, resources. Those are what is important to us. That's the real deal. All this other nonsense about Indian American status and all that other stuff, and, you know, 2-year elections and government elections and stuff like that. That's politics. Politics. This is not politics, man. This is for real. This is for real what we're talking about. And you understand, as homeowners, as landowners, that you've invested in, how important that is to you and your family and your grandparents. And you have your fence to mark off your property. You talk about how your grandfather was so proud how he made that fence and painted that fence. And now I'm not going to touch it because he made that 40 years ago, and we're going to keep it there. Our fence is the Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean. Just to try to imagine that belief that we have in who we are, how our people were connected. We can't take that out of us. That's who we are. That's what it means to be indigenous to the territory. That's what we are. That's why we have to win this. We can't stop at being who we are. And now we're at a point where we as alliances, this is important to all of us now. Protection for your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. We want to leave them something. And we want to protect them. That's why I'm here today. We come. There are no honorariums. No. We come to share our beliefs. And I'm rambling on because we don't have a lot of compassion. I'm very comfortable here talking like this. We can remember when they're not to expect a smile from a police officer or an all-white jury and a white judge. That wasn't very long ago. Not to expect a smile from a school teacher or a professor when you walk in the room. We remember that. To be watched when you walk into a grocery store for no reason. To have somebody come up to you immediately as you come in the door. Can I help you? Oh, I just shut the door. I want a loaf of bread. Can I help you? Can I help you? We get more service when we walk into the stores than anybody else. Because of the color of our skin. So we need to know that what we talk about is experience, what you have is education. And I think that's going to be a good combination of doing this. Thank you.
If there are any more questions floating in the crowd, please feel free. And if anyone's watching the live stream and has questions, bring them on up. The next question is, when you look at the Alton Gas website, they do a pretty good job of making it look like they're working with and consulting the Mi'kmaq people. What do you have to say about that, and how might we combat this appearance?
Oh, yeah. Well, the Alton Gas website says that they've been in touch with, consulting with Mi'kmaq people all along, when they haven't been. Like I said, we just first met them at a meeting that they came to in, first I went to an information session that they had in, community information session they had in Brookfield. And when I walked into the room, there was booths set up in a semicircle around the room. And when I walked in, it was so loud in there. It was like people were all talking at the same time. So I went to the first booth, and I seen a picture up there, Alton Gas. And then the next booth was talking about all the studies that they did. And what was missing on there was the Mi'kmaq study. And so I asked them where was the traditional use of the Mi'kmaq of this area. Study that was done in 2003 by a member to geomatics. And the girl said, "What? It's not on there?" I said, "No, it's not on there. It should be on there if you're using that to, because I said, we just mapped out that whole area of all our traditional use places, and you put that pipeline through where you started the caverns right down to the river." And I said, that's a slap in the face. You know, what we did was, in good faith, showed you where not to put something like this. And then she didn't know what to say. I asked where David Burkett was, and she pointed him out, and I said I would go see him. I went to the next booth, and there was somebody there, and I was asking a question. You're going to have to go over there. That one there knows that answer. So I went down to the next booth, and they were telling me, go back over there, that one knows this answer. So I said, you know what, this isn't working for me. So I whistled. And everybody stopped. And I said, excuse me, I said, you know, this isn't working. I said, I can't hear the answers to the questions. I can't even ask the question because they're telling me to go over there and over there. And back over here again. I said, could you all make a presentation and tell us what this is about and answer our questions that we all can hear? And it lasted for about 20 seconds and then went right back to what they were doing. And I realized I was in a non-native community, and I was at the Brookfield Fire Hall, who got a big donation from Alton Gas. But I felt like I was supposed to be there for some reason, and I was the only native person there. So I turned around and I went out, and my friends from the Alton Gas Resistance were out there giving out pamphlets about what the Alton Gas Project was doing and will do if we allow them to do that. I got in my car and I drove home, and I said, I have to go and pray because this is not right. Alton Gas finally met with the Mi'kmaq in Millbrook, not even in Indian. They didn't come to our community, where we were just off the river. They went to Millbrook. And when I walked in the hall, they had it set up the exact same way that was in Brookfield. They had all these booths set up, and I said, oh, no, you don't. This isn't going to happen like this. And I went to the chief, PJ Prosper, and the other one, Chief Bob Glode, and I told them, this is not right. They can't do this. This didn't work for me in Millbrook, in Brookfield, and it's not going to work here. So I made them kick down the boots and then sit in front of us. And we'll ask questions. We'll get the answers that everybody can hear. And so what they write on their website is it's about they're going ahead like nothing's the matter. That they have all the permits and they have every and they're making headway with the Mi'kmaq people in Nova Scotia in our territory when they are not. What they say is they're trying. They have never been to Indian to talk to the people. They've been to the band office to talk to the chief, but they have never been to our community center to talk to the people, get our input. So I would say that what they write is not true. They haven't been reaching out to our people. They never once came down the river to talk to our people. So, and still today, we're waiting for that meeting when they can come so they can hear us, just like now. They can listen to us.
Just to add to that, perfect story. Just to add to that, Alton Gas or any corporation really don't have the authority to consult with the Indigenous nation. It's got to be a government-to-government process. So for the provincial government to direct Alton Gas in some form to consult with the Mi'kmaq nation, right from the start is wrong. Why would we talk to a corporation? It's just a corporation. I made a corporation, I bought a corporation, and now I've got a limited company. Now I can negotiate with a nation on a treaty right. I mean, that's how ridiculous the process is. It's getting late, guys. Come on, let's go.
Right,
Bring it on.
I do want to add one thing to that you were talking about how there's no information available, and you went to this meeting and it was impossible to hear anything, and I had a pretty similar experience. I spent like most of the month of January doing one of the more boring tasks of my entire life, which was reading the entire environmental assessment for the Alton Gas Project. Holy moly. And I found that after reading hundreds and hundreds of pages, I actually didn't know very much again. I didn't know a lot. And so I ended up with tons of questions. And the more I tried to ask these questions, the more I was just hitting these brick walls of like, oh, well, you'll have to submit a Freedom of Information Act to get that information. So I was finding there were all these requirements of the environmental assessment, so the company creates the assessment, the government says, that sounds fine, and here are 15 conditions that we need you to meet. And then there's no way to get the information publicly to find out whether or not those conditions were ever met. So there are all sorts of conditions like, yeah, you can go ahead, but you have to do a year of groundwater monitoring first. And I was like, well, did that happen? And the closest I got to an answer was like, yes. And we won't qualify that with any information because that's behind a wall where you have to submit things. So there's all these questions that we still don't know the answers to that relate to consultation, but also just we don't even really know what is in the ecosystem that they're going to grade and put a pipeline through. They don't have to tell us that. So when we talk about changing all these laws, we're talking about changing from a consultation model to a consent model, but also having public information to even know what this project will do to the ecosystems that we rely on. We don't have that information. So yeah, it's quite a large issue.
It's not on your website.
So here's a question that I might actually just, forgive me if I answer this incorrectly, I think it's going to be a short answer. Is there a compromise that will be accepted by Sipekne'katik with Alton Gas? Are there stipulations that could put this project, or that could be put on this project that would satisfy the environmental concerns of the people of Sipekne'katik? And I'm going to hazard a guess and say the answer is just no. No? Great. Done.
No. That's what it's saying.
Yeah.
That would be a very short meeting.
All right, so I think I'm going to go with one more question and then talk about what we all do about all this information we just learned. So the last question, I guess, is how does Trudeau's promise to uphold the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People affect the need to consult, and how does that relate to this project?
Trudeau made a lot of promises. Hold the rights of Indigenous people, that we would have a veto. We would be able to say no to these projects. Now he's saying no. Not a veto, not a no, but we have the as a residential school survivor myself, I speak on behalf of the Truth and Reconciliation, the 94 calls to action. And that part of our reconciliation, to work together to make our, to bring us all to that peace and friendship where we live, and where we share everything, and that we take care of it. That we protect it and take care of it for our future generations. The rights, the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, where Jody, the Justice Minister, said that it was not workable. That there has to be work done on that. For them to honor the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. So we see where the government is going with we see the barriers, we see the things that are up in front of us, we see all the challenges that are up in front of us. But we know that working together and working with everybody, that we can get that. We can get past the say, I think they say, where it's not workable. Because they agreed to uphold the UN Declaration. So I think the challenges that we have, they're all Canadians' challenge. They're everybody's challenge. So I feel like we're not in this alone. Thank you.
That's a tough question. That's a tough question. And again, the what's it called? Under Canada would only institute that if we continue to be Indian Act Indians. If we continue to be on municipality reserves, small pieces of land that are controlled by the federal government, then they would recognize the United Nations Declaration. They're very nervous of us, as it says, that Indian nations, the indigenous nations rather, need to be rights, and treaty rights, land use need to be recognized. It is political suicide for a politician to agree with that. Yeah. Only the courts will make those decisions. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to close the question period, and I want to give another huge thank you and round of applause to our speakers for not only being here tonight, but all their work over the years. So there's one more question, but I was going to get to it anyway. It's like, okay, now we know all this stuff. How do you all join this movement to fight these problems and protect all that is worth protecting? So if you saw on the way in, there's a table full of information, and one of the things on that table was a little piece of paper. And it had two instructions. One was that tomorrow, the first thing we want you to do is we want you to call Margaret Miller, who is the Environment Minister, to tell me to stop. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. There's a little script on there so you can have something to say. There's her phone number, email, Twitter, and probably some other ways to heckle her online. So you can do that. And then on the back side of that paper, there's an invitation to a brainstorm planning meeting. Oh, you guys are good now? The brainstorm planning meeting happening on April 22nd. Yes, April 22nd. And what we'll do then is figure out what sort of interests you have, what you can do, what you want to do, and how we can put that to work. for stopping Alton Gas. So please grab that piece of paper on your way out. And I'll just make a shameless pitch that, like, if you join this movement, you'll get to hang out with these people all the time. You'll get to see Dorene just like lay it down in front of a room full of people and make them all listen, even though they're trying really hard not to. You get to meet Dale, who's just been like living beside the Shubenacadie River for 8 months. It's funny, he's just keeping watch, making sure Alton Gas doesn't come back in the night when we're not looking. And you'll get to hang out with Jim, who, my only description of Jim is when Jim talks, you shut up, listen. So, yeah, so please join us, please grab that information. We're going to have some tea and cake, and you can hang out and talk to other people who you see here, and maybe the panelists if they stick around, but Jim looks like he wants to go.
My wife's waiting for me. She don't have a license, so I need to go pick her up. I'm supposed to be there at 8 o'clock.
Oh, geez.
And she can hit harder than me, so. I gotta go, we'll talk.
I just want to give a big shout out to all of the sponsors of this event, the Council of Canadians where I work, the Canada Research Chair in Sustainability and Social Change, the Loaded Ladle, Ennisburg, Fernwood, and a couple really great students from Dale who helped this whole thing happen. Everyone has spent their evening learning about this project and learning about ways to cite it. So, yeah, mingle, hang about, ask questions, talk with people. I'll be around, grab some tea, have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.